And good morning. Welcome to Breakthrough Walls. I'm Ken Walls, and I am your host. So, listen, I am pretty fired up. Hold on, I'm trying to pull something up here on my computer real quick. Pretty fired up about what's going on here today. I have a very, very special guest, an amazing lady on the show today. I want to welcome my Facebook friend, and we're becoming friends, but my friend Sarah Monares to the show. Sarah, welcome to the show.
Hello, thank you. Thanks for having me here.
I'm excited to have you on. You're a rock star. So, I don't know you really, really well. We've been friends on Facebook for, I don't know, 2 or 3 years, I think. But, and I've seen your stuff. I know you're unbelievably smart. We share a lot of mutual friends and clients. And so, I want to talk a little bit about you, your life, how you've broken through some of the things that have tried to stop you in life, and just learn more about who you are and what you do. So why don't we start with where you were born and raised?
Yeah, sure. Well, before I dive into that, I just want to say that I love your show. I love the heart and the premise of this show. So thank you for all you're doing to help people break through their walls and just pour into them. I think you're amazing. So
thank you.
I appreciate that. Yeah. With that being said, where am I from, right?
Yeah.
Is that what you asked me? Yeah, so I was born and raised in northern Colorado. I'm still here in Colorado. I love it here. It's an amazing place to live. As far as my living history, it's not very exciting.
Oh, it's not? All right. Well, hey, thanks for being on.
Yeah.
I'm kidding. So I'm sure, but so you grew up and by the way, I've been through northern Colorado, and OMG, it is so beautiful. It is unbelievable. I'll never forget when I moved to Seattle many, many years ago, and I drove out and I went through, it was part of Colorado and Utah, or maybe it was Wyoming, and I don't remember, but I remember driving, and all of a sudden I'm in between these two mountains that I've never seen anything like it in my life at that point, right? I just hadn't experienced anything like that. And I can remember I pulled the car off the road just so I could, on the interstate, just so I could take it in. I was like, oh my gosh. I couldn't believe it. It's mind blowing. So you're from a very beautiful part of this country.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I love it. My husband's talked about moving a couple of times, and I'm like, yeah, no, I don't think it's going to happen.
You're like, I can love you from afar.
Yeah, have fun with that.
Yeah, bye. So you were, and you went to school out there, I assume. Did you go to a public school and all that?
I did, yeah. So when I was born to mom and dad, they were married. My dad was a Baptist preacher, and I grew up on a farm. I started riding horses when I was about 3 by myself. I loved horses, still do to this day. They were like my spirit animal, I guess you could say.
you and my wife, I swear, you guys would be like BFFs. She is a horse freak. When I met her, she had 2 horses and lived right next to the boarding stable. Literally, the property they were attached, and I don't know anything about horses except for they're way bigger than me, and I've heard that they can bite your finger off if you feed them wrong, and I'm like, that sounds fun. Yeah, I want to be around that. So, but my wife she's a champion dressage rider. I know what that means now. And,
Nice.
So she's had, Yeah, but they've passed since then, so we're horseless right now. But literally,
Oh,
my 8-year-old daughter, like they're attacking me all the time.
oh,
Dad,
I
we want a
bet.
horse, we want a horse, and I'm like,
I've
oh.
seen a picture of all the land you have. You better hurry up and buy a horse.
Yeah, I'm not. We can't have them on this neighborhood.
Oh,
No, but there's boarding stables everywhere. So,
yeah, yeah.
but anyway, so you love horses.
I love horses. Yeah. So I had, as we all have, some difficult things that happened in childhood. And before we went on live here, you had said that you're a believer in things begin in childhood, and I 100% agree with that.
Mm-hmm.
Horses were, when I was little, they were my escape, and so they were my friends,
Yeah.
kind of like a dog, but just a whole lot bigger.
Yeah, a lot bigger.
Yeah.
You can't tell them to lay down either. They will not listen.
No.
No. A dog will. Horses, nope.
So, yeah. So my parents are, since they divorced when I was 10, there was a lot of chaos between the two of them, lots of conflict, lots of fighting, lots of stuff going on behind the scenes. Because as I said, my dad was a Baptist preacher. We were in church, every time the doors were open. So 5, 6 days, 7 days a week sometimes.
Wow.
Yeah, that was our life. And we would go to church and we would present as the perfect family. Mm-hmm. And that's who we were. And I was the preacher's daughter, and I was amazing and perfect and all of these things. And then you go home, and behind closed doors, there's fighting and there's all of these things going on. And I think for me, I learned from a very young age how to hide the ugly, how to pretend like everything's amazing and wonderful, and how to cope and survive that way. And as a young child, I think I was around 5-ish or 6-ish. I don't know. My brain hasn't allowed me to totally know.
Right.
But yeah, so I experienced sexual abuse by one of my babysitter's teenage sons.
Oh, wow.
It was ongoing for a little while. And so there was also that piece tied into everything else, where it was, again, learning how to hide, how to pretend like everything's amazing.
Yeah.
Nothing bad ever happens, right? Yeah.
So did you, and I went through a lot of childhood craziness myself, so I can relate to all of that. So did you, how did you cope? That's because you have to cope.
Right.
Right. I remember
Yeah.
I met a psychiatrist years ago, and I was trying to sell him something, and he said, "Give me your best price," and I said, "I just did," and he said, "No, you didn't." I said, "Yes, I did." He goes, "You're lying," and I said, "I don't lie." I puffed out my chest, right? He goes, "Yes, you do," and I go, "No, I don't. How dare you?" I was ready to punch him or something. Dude, what? And I was like, "You pompous ass." and he says, "We all lie. Everybody on this planet lies. You have to lie. You have to lie to yourself to survive, or you would go stark raving mad. If you told the truth to yourself about everything going on around you right now, you'd go crazy, nuts, right?" So, which kind of made sense to me, right? You have to, when you go through that stuff, you have to, especially as a child, you have to lie to yourself. You
Right.
have to lie. You have to make up things in your head to make it okay.
Right.
So how did you cope? What trajectory did you take?
Yeah. So I think it took me a while to understand, later as an adult, how as a child, I think we incorporate things into our minds and into our belief systems in such a different way than we do as an adult. And so I was going to church all the time. I was hearing my dad. I realized later, and this was after a lot of work and a lot of therapy
Yeah. Yeah.
and a lot of stuff,
Right.
that I had incorporated because I had listened to my dad, and this is not fault of him, but on the pulpit on Sundays talking about sex outside of marriage is terrible, and all of these things. If you have any sexual thoughts or if anything sexual happens before marriage, then you're damned to hell, essentially. Like you are a bad person, you're dirt, whatever.
Yeah.
That's how I heard it as a young child.
Yep.
And like, oh my gosh, this is happening, so all of these things must be true for me. So it must be my fault. I'm going to hell. I'm a terrible person. There is no real hope for me in the
Right.
future because I'm 5 and this is happening.
Right. Right.
So that was huge. It was a huge belief that I incorporated at such a young age. And then at 10, my parents had a very, very, very ugly, bitter
Wow.
to figure out pieces of myself that I didn't want to deal with, that I didn't want to recognize, I didn't want to pay attention to, and learning how to completely compartmentalize myself. And I think part of doing that is then we learn to take on other people's stuff, because you have to fill the hole somehow, right? And so I
Yep.
can avoid my stuff. I can avoid this pain and these beliefs about myself by taking on the feelings and the thoughts of other people. And so I became,
That's called codependency.
yes,
So I could.
you're
Yeah.
exactly right.
I'm so familiar with that. Holy moly. And I think, and it, like for me, gosh, I can so relate. Nobody was, trust me, there were no preachers in my house, but I can relate to the self-judgment, right? And like, I'm condemned to hell. And my thoughts, I'm kind of guessing right now. But I believe that I probably thought, well, since I'm going to hell, I might as well live like I'm already there.
Totally.
Yeah, party on. I was nuts, right?
Yep.
Like,
100%.
right, right.
Mhm.
So you kind of like internalized everything.
Yeah,
Yeah,
everything.
yeah,
Until I got older, and then I was just like you.
yeah.
So I started to get older. The divorce happened. My mom, and there was stuff with my mom. My mom was very codependent. And so when you have a very codependent parent, then what they do is they try and control their children, right, to become what they need them to be. And so
Yep.
I fell right into that, and it worked for me because then I could avoid all of this other stuff. At that point, nobody in my family knew about the abuse. I hadn't disclosed it to anyone. It was something that I was hiding. And so my mom ended up having an affair on my dad with somebody in the church, and it was like pure hatred and chaos, and
Wow.
it was horrible. And so at that point, I remember thinking, because there was so much hypocrisy and negativity and hatred. And I remember thinking, if this is who God is, I want nothing to do with him.
Right.
And if I'm already going to hell.
Right. Yeah.
So I started to get rebellious,
Sure.
and I started to really look for self-worth and my identity in other people,
Yeah.
mainly in men
Right.
and romantic relationships. And I remember wanting to get married at a very young age, because I thought, okay, this is how I can prove my worth or my value
Right.
if someone wants to be in a serious relationship with me. So as I got older, high school, I met a friend who, see, I was painfully shy. Oh my gosh, I was so shy.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Being called on in class, I would turn bright red from head to toe. I would start to shake. I hated being the center of attention. I wanted nothing to do with it because it felt exposing. As soon as everybody's eyes on me, it was like everybody can see all of the things that I'm trying to hide. And so I did whatever I could to not be in that position.
Yeah.
And I met a friend in high school who really was one of the first people to help me realize that I could speak up, that I had a voice. She's still one of my greatest friends today.
Wow.
And so that started my journey to where I kind of went from one extreme to the other. So I started drinking. In high school, there might have been some experimentation with
I mean,
some
you
green
are in
stuff.
Colorado.
It wasn't legal back then, though.
Right, right. They no longer call it experimentation there. It's just it's legal.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I started smoking cigarettes. I mean, I did whatever I could to be the opposite of what I had been. I was in destructive relationships. I was very self-destructive. And so after high school, I, the expectation was kind of, you go to college. It actually wasn't an expectation because neither one of my parents graduated from college. It was my way out. It was my way to be independent in a way. And so I went to college and, oh my gosh, like I'm surprised I made it through.
Did you graduate college?
I did graduate, but not without a story in between. So, drinking a lot. Like I look back and I think, holy moly, how did I not die of alcohol poisoning?
Right.
Really, like I must have a purpose because
Yeah.
I'm still here.
I cannot relate to that in any way.
I'm sure.
Yeah, I might be able to.
I need to read your book. I do. I need to read it.
Oh, do you have my book?
I have it. I need to get it, and I need
You
to read
don't have
it.
my book?
No.
Sarah.
I know.
Well, I'll have to hook you up with a copy. So, but and tell me some of the college stories. Now, was this in Colorado still?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I went to college in Greeley, which is where I live now, which was only about 45 minutes from where I grew up, because of that codependency thing, right? Like
Yeah.
I still had to go home. I still, but there was distance. And so, oh man, I can't even, we partied, we drank, I was very irresponsible. I was, always looking for the man to complete me.
Yep.
And so my junior year, I had gotten involved in a relationship with somebody who was not the best person in the world and was very, I guess, volatile and not great. And so I got pregnant my junior year of undergrad. And knew immediately that was a shifting point for me. I didn't want to be pregnant.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it was a point for me that completely it shifted everything in my life because I had to quit drinking. I had to quit doing all of the things that I was doing. And when I got pregnant, it was the messages that I got around me were, oh, poor Sarah. She was going to college. She was going to make something of herself. Now she's ruined her life. Now she's
Wow.
not really going to, you know,
And that's
mountain.
from your parents?
No, mainly my mom. Yeah,
Ah,
my mom was very angry about me being pregnant. My dad was always supportive.
yeah.
My dad, um, yeah, it was more in other people, like
Yeah.
in our around, it was a terrible thing. And so that actually helped me. That, those messages, because I've always, even though I was quiet and shy and scared and anxious and all of those things, I always had kind of this fire that was dormant within me.
Yeah.
And that was like, I wanted to flip everybody off with both hands and say, oh yeah, watch me. Like, watch me.
Right.
I am going to make something of myself and
Right.
I am going to be someone. And it wasn't for me at that time necessarily, but it was for my daughter. I'm going to provide her with an amazing life. And so it was fuel. And people talk about, taking the messages from your haters and taking the messages from your naysayers, and using them as fuel. And you 100% can do that rather than
Sure.
allow it to defeat you. I mean, if you gotta give the bird, do it.
Wow. I might have a couple of preachers that watch this and go, wait a minute. Wait a minute. Let's talk about the bird. I'm kidding. So I agree with that 1,000%. And again, this is about you, but I want to just interject some of my thoughts
Yeah,
because
no, I
I've been
love it.
through a lot of crap. I'm in recovery. I have 16 and a half years sober, and like you talk about, like I've spilled more than you've drank. Okay, so like I promise you. But and I'm not trying to compare, but I
Yeah.
look back. Because I started drinking at 7 or 8 years old and smoking
Okay.
cigarettes and all of that stuff. And I was rebellious. Anyway, I spent most of my teenage years on probation. How about that? So,
Hmm. Yeah.
but I mean, you're a product of your environment as a child. I mean, children don't come out of the womb ready to go to jail. Like that's
Right.
a learned
Exactly.
behavior, right?
Yep.
And
Hmm.
so, but I look back now and I think, all of those experiences that I went through, that I almost drank myself to death on many occasions, like that made me who I am today. And I'm grateful for it. I'm no
Hmm.
longer resentful towards it anymore. I'm just not. It made
Right.
me who I am.
Hmm.
Right? Do
Yeah.
you feel that
Oh,
way?
totally.
Do you?
Yes. I went through a period of being very resentful and, yeah,
I can
yes,
feel you,
for
right?
sure.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think the interesting thing is that you were rebellious overtly, like breaking the law and doing those things. I was rebellious just in a quieter way.
Yeah. Well, I was set up. I'm just kidding.
I was like, wait a minute, hang on.
Nobody breaks the laws like guilty, like they're all innocent. Anyway, no, when I was just doing dumb things, fighting and stuff like that. So,
Yeah.
um,
Hmm.
but that, when you're a kid and you've been through a bunch of bad stuff like that, like it's just, I think it's natural, probably even for adults to just, that reacting, Grant talks about the reactive mind. You're reacting too much to things instead of really allowing it to process and
Yeah.
and so and I love that. So so you went to college, you graduated college, but you had a baby when you graduated.
Yeah,
Wow.
my daughter was 1 years old when I graduated.
Wow.
I I had her, I finished summer school August 1st. I had her August 15th, and I went back for my senior year like August 25th or something.
Oh
So
my
I
gosh.
started my senior year with a 10-day-old as a single mom.
In
So,
postpartum.
yes, I had to carry my donut to class.
Oh
You know,
my
the one
Lord,
to sit
have
on.
mercy. Are you kidding me?
No.
Oh my gosh. Wow, bless your heart. So
Yeah.
you went to so you graduated college. I didn't even graduate high school. They told me in 12th grade, hey, you didn't get a biology credit in 10th grade and you need that to graduate. And I'm like, for what? Well, I hated it. That's why I
Yeah.
didn't get a credit. I failed it because I hate it. What am I going to use? I'm not dissecting a frog ever in my life. So just give me the piece of paper. Come on. I've been here.
Right.
Like, they're like, no. So I walked out. I had 3 months left and I just said, I'm out. Y'all
Mhm.
suck. I hate your stupid school anyway. I'm out of here. And now my 8-year-old, she's like, Daddy, I don't want to go to school. And I'm like, well, then don't go. Stay home, I'll teach you.
I'm
You know,
sure.
and my wife's who went to college, my wife's like, stop that. And she goes, my little one will be like, I hate school. And I'm like, I don't blame you. I hated it too.
I was gonna say, I bet your wife really loves
Oh
that.
no, she does not love that at all. She can't
Yeah.
stand that. But I can relate to it. That's why. It's like it sucks. I don't like
Yeah.
it. So
Yeah.
um so you graduated from college. You still were carrying, obviously not your daughter, not your baby, but you were carrying baggage, not your
Oh, yeah.
child, but you were carrying some serious baggage.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
what happened next? You get out of college, and then what?
So I got out of college, and even after I had her, I calmed down quite a bit. I changed my life a lot, but not totally.
Right.
Um, she would go to my mom's house one night every weekend, and I would just party as hard as I could that one
Yeah.
night
Heck
while
yeah,
she
man.
was
You
gone.
have to.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
and
I mean, you deserve
then
it, right?
get right, right. Yeah. And then, put it all back together, and I was functioning amazingly to everybody else. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? I was really good at putting on a show. And
Right.
so, never, ever, ever telling anybody what was really going on within me. And so, um, so I graduated and I couldn't get a job because my bachelor's is in behavioral science with a minor in psychology, which is really hard to get a job in anywhere without a master's in that
Right.
field.
Right.
So I ended up working in retail. I hated it because I was never home. I never saw Aubrey. And it was, I've always loved helping people.
Yeah.
I know somewhere within me I have a bigger purpose. And so I decided to go back to school, and I was going to be a school counselor. So I started grad school, and so I started grad school when she was about, I think she must have been 3 when
Oh
I
my
started.
gosh.
Yeah, and I loved it though. It was amazing. It was like, that really is where my personal growth journey really started, because if you're going to be a counselor, the number one thing that you do during school is you learn about yourself,
Mm-hmm.
because who you are is going to affect your clients that you're
Sure.
working with. And so I had no clue that's what I was walking into.
Oh wow. You're like,
I thought, I'm going to go help other people.
right.
I can ignore these things in my life still,
Right.
right?
You're like, wait a minute, can we
Yeah.
not talk about me? Let's talk about all those screwed up people in the world I'm going to help.
it's true. And I still have to watch myself because that's my tendency, right? I'm just like you. I interview other people. I love hearing other people's stories. Not very often do I share my own story, and I have to watch that. I have to check myself because it's an easy way to hide, actually.
Yep, it sure is.
Yeah.
It is.
So I was almost done with school counseling, and then I realized I loved actual counseling and sitting in front of people and hearing the depths of them. And so I figured that I should do another degree. So I ended up double majoring. So I have a master's in school counseling, but a master's in community counseling and marriage and family therapy. And I
Good Lord, have mercy. You're like the most educated person I've had on the show. I'm kidding. I've had a couple of doctors, but like that's incredible.
Well, thanks. Yeah. Yeah. So when I graduated, Aubrey was about 5 or 6.
Wow.
Yeah. And I worked in a psych hospital for a while. Then I worked with families who had an adolescent, kind of like you probably would,
Yeah.
in the court system.
I may have known a few of you in my day.
Probably. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And then ended up, so I was a single mom with her for 8 years and then ended up meeting my husband. And, but that's not to say, within there was a string of, bad relationships, still trying to work on my own value and my own worth. And,
Yep.
2 years before I met my husband, I decided I needed a break to get to know myself. And so I made it a rule to stop dating, and I didn't date anyone for 2 years. And then I met him, wanted nothing to do with him.
Yep.
I was doing pretty well,
Yep.
focusing on myself, and he was pretty adamant and won me over. So we ended up getting married 2 years later. So at that point, it was kind of like, all right, we're going along. And right before I met him, I had started a private practice, which I loved. And then poop kind of hit the fan again, about 2 years into our marriage. So,
Wow.
yeah, you're going along and it's like, okay, I can take a deep breath. Everything's going well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that, again, and you're the counselor, not me. But I think that the biggest thing, and I'm sure you will agree, is that especially in a marriage, and anything really, communication, open and honest communication is so important.
Yeah.
In the program that I was in for many, many years for my issues with alcohol, there's a saying that we are as sick as our secrets. Right. So that's so important. My wife and I literally talk about everything. Like we can talk, and we get mad and we yell and we do all that stuff, but we have that open communication, and we know we can do that, right?
Yeah.
And I think that I don't know that that's healthy or not, but I think it is. It's worked for 9 years so far. So
totally.
Yeah, which is the longest I've ever been married. So. Right.
Oh yeah. Well, there's something to be said about that for sure. Yeah.
So is that what happened? You guys started shutting down, or what? When?
Yeah, it wasn't really within us necessarily.
Okay.
It was more stuff that happened around us. And
I got you.
I will say though, the first year of marriage was tough.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because, like you said, and I 100% agree, that communication piece is huge.
Right.
And I had just come out of taking care of myself, being a single mom, being independent, not needing anybody else
Right.
for 8 years. And, that was a lie that I told myself, though, too. I don't need anybody else.
Right.
We do need other people.
Yes.
We do need connection. We do need those authentic relationships where you can talk to somebody about anything. We need that to grow. And that was really hard for me because I had been hiding for so long. And so to believe that somebody really could actually love the ugliness, it was really hard for me to understand and to grasp that. And so he was begging me to communicate with him. I was begging him. We're both non-communicators.
Oh, God. Right.
We both are withdrawers. We both, something happens, our instinct is to go our separate ways. That's not good if you don't push through that, because you just keep getting further and further away. So, so we figured it out. We worked it out. I'm a therapist, but I encourage everybody to go to therapy. Yeah. Always. We went to therapy. I think there's so much value, whether it's a therapist, whether it's a coach. I think there's different reasons for both, for sure. Sometimes you need both at the same time. There's such value in having somebody who can see your situation from the outside, who's not emotionally invested, to be able to say, hey, have you thought about this or that? So lots of growth. And then, so we were married in 2010. I ended up having a few years of some major things happen. So I had my son in 2012. That same year, I got a stalker, through my counseling practice, and it was terrifying and horrible, and yes.
Wow.
So I was dealing with that, and I had a terrible pregnancy. Then after this, this part of the story is kind of humorous, because it's kind of like, really? Like, are you making all of this up?
Love it.
So then, right after my son was born, my mom disappeared. So my mom, as I said, was very codependent. I mean, she was intertwined in every area of my life. And one day, while I was still pregnant, she told me that she was moving to Miami, and that she was going to go. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yes. Totally out of character for her. Like, what? Like, she was so close to my daughter. So even that, we were like, what is happening? What is going on? And I'll make a really long story short, but my son was about 2 weeks, no, not even a week old. And we showed up to her house to move some stuff for her in preparation of her move, and she was gone. Her house was empty.
What?
She, yeah. And I haven't seen her since. So
what?
So that was 7 years ago. Yeah.
Are you serious?
Yeah. Uh-huh. Yeah.
Have you talked to her?
No. Mm-mm.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So the craziest thing, and I don't talk about this a ton because I don't even know how much I'm allowed to talk about, but I found out later, I mean, that was such a period of confusion, and you know, somebody who you think you know better than anybody. Like, right. I thought my mom was the one that would be there no matter what, right?
Wow.
And I mean, it rocked my world. And so I found out later that she's wanted for nonviolent crime, that she's continuing. I don't know if she's alive. I don't know
Oh, wow.
where she is. Nothing.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Holy moly.
Yeah.
So, wow. So you've had, um, so you've experienced some tough things in life.
Yeah. Mhm.
I truly, I talk to a lot of people. I get a lot of people that reach out to me. I don't work with everybody that reaches out to me. I just like sometimes it's too much.
Mhm.
You know what I mean.
Yeah.
I'll start referring them to you. I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. But I mean, there are people that need more than coaching. There are people that need
Yeah.
professional help. And I
Right.
don't mean medication. I'm not a believer in that.
Yeah.
I think there are people that need like somebody that can go really, really deep and help them walk them through that process. And I've been there. And anyone watching this that is watching now or will watch on the replay, like I went through many, many, many years of therapy as a teenager
Mhm.
and into adulthood. And, it helped me. It was with a psychotherapist, not a psychiatrist that was trying to put me on
Mhm.
drugs. I'm not doing that.
Big difference. Yeah.
Yeah,
Mm.
and I in fact, and I won't mention her name, but as a teenager, I had a counselor for many years. She's a therapist, psychologist, and she saved my life. And today, she's actually a friend of mine on Facebook. And after
Mm.
I wrote my book, she actually bought my book during my launch a year ago, Sarah.
Sorry.
But she bought my book and I didn't know. I had no idea. I didn't know that she was watching me. Like I didn't know. And
Yeah.
she sent me this really unbelievable note on Facebook Messenger. I'm going to choke up just talking about it
Mhm.
because, when you're a kid and going through the tumultuousness, is that a word, that I was
Yeah.
going through, and violence and a lot of other things in my
Mhm.
life, like I looked up to her, right? So I
Mhm.
actually like plus she was hot. If she watches this, I
Got a
mean
crush
she
on
was
her.
smoking hot. At least I thought so. So anyway, so I really was living my life like I want to make sure that I'm living in a way I wanted to improve to impress her probably, right,
Mm.
as my counselor. And so there's my point is I want anyone to know that there is zero shame in going to counseling.
Mm.
Zero. Like,
Yeah.
in fact, if you go get a divorce or you're doing stupid things in your life, you should go to counseling. You should get into therapy. You should get a coach. You should invest in that. I don't
Mhm.
care if your insurance doesn't cover it. You cover it. The
Yeah.
greatest thing I've done in my entire life is investing in myself,
Mhm.
investing in learning why do I do the things that I do and how can I fix that and make it better, and I've done that.
Right. Yeah.
So anyway, so you've been through a lot of craziness, and I'm sorry to hear that about your mom taking off like that recently. Oh, well, not, I mean, 7 years ago.
Mhm.
That's insane. But so we're 45 minutes into this. Holy moly! Um,
How
that's
long do we got? Do we got to get off here?
well, I like keeping it around an hour, but we can go a little
Okay.
longer if we need to. Um, I mean, it is my show.
It's
It's
your
like
show. You get to
nobody
choose.
besides me decides when this thing shuts down. Um, so when, so how do you? Because your daughter now has to be how old?
She's 18.
My goodness. So
Yeah.
your
Yeah.
daughter's 18 years old. So at 11, your mom takes off.
Yeah. She
Her
was 11.
grandmother.
Yep.
And were they close?
Yeah, they
Oh
were
my
very
God. And
close.
so like your daughter's grandmother left. Just
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, there was a real season of loss for
oh,
us because 2 years after my mom left, my brother died in a car accident,
oh my
and
God.
I know.
Wha-
Just keep going, yeah,
Wow.
and yeah, and then there's been just a lot of things, and we went kind of from having this network of support, even though sometimes it was dysfunctional,
Yeah.
to not having any support. So my dad, who was an amazing support and still is now, though he lives in Florida, he's far away. He got really sick. He ended up having strokes, and
Oh,
so that there
jeez.
was that. And so it was kind of like our foundation of support was just ripped out from under us within a fairly short period of time. It was kind of like I got to a point where I was like, oh gosh, okay, well, what's going to happen next? Because things just keep happening.
Yeah.
um, Now, though, and I can see after my brother passed, it was like something else. I think we go through these things in life, and each time something is kind of awakened within us.
Yeah.
And it's like a building process. And I had known for quite some time that within my heart, what I felt like the message is that my message was much bigger than how I was getting out in the world at that point, and that I needed to write a book. I needed to start speaking publicly, which was terrifying. I
Yeah.
mean, absolutely terrifying to me to go from I survive by completely shutting down and acting like everything is perfect to holy crap, like I have to be vulnerable and put my real self out there. That is so scary, but so freaking freeing. Like I can't
Yes.
even, it's amazing. And so, after my brother died, it was like something grabbed hold of me and shook me up. And, like, look at this. You look at all that you have lost. You can lose everything at any moment, including your own life.
Yeah.
Like, you don't have that much time here. You never know how much time you have here and how sad it would be to end our time here not doing the things that we know within ourselves that we're supposed to be doing. And so I lived a constant internal battle for a long time of knowing what I was being called to do but not doing it. And that in and of itself causes anxiety and all of these other things, which we won't go into since we're but it causes its own set of stuff. And so after that, I decided to make some huge changes in my life, and I quit all of the things, I really quit drinking. My brother had a drug and alcohol problem for his whole life, and when he got into the accident, he had high levels of alcohol and also had drugs in his system. So it was, yeah.
Well,
So
let me ask you this.
yeah.
Let me because I want to back up just a minute, just a little bit.
Okay.
You said that, and this is so important because this I preached this, like it's in my book. I talk about this a lot. If you're not doing, like, I believe that we all are sent here with a specific purpose that we
Yeah.
are supposed to do. And I also believe that intuitively we know what that is. If you just learn to listen to that inner
Yeah.
voice and meditate or whatever you need to do to get in touch with it, I truly believe that you know what it is. And so I know that if everything's going wrong all the time, like you can't seem to get it together, then there's a pretty good chance. I mean, nobody is that jacked up in the head that they can't do some things right once in a while, right? But if everything seems to be going wrong no matter what you do, then you're probably not living in your purpose. Would you agree with that?
100%. Yes.
So what was it, Sarah, that kept you from living in your purpose, from doing what you were supposed to be doing, what you were sent here to do? What was it?
Oh, geez. I think it was a combination, and I 100% agree with you. I think it was a combination of all of the lies that I had told myself, all of the childhood things. You're not worthy. Why would anybody want to listen to you? Also messages like, it's arrogant, or you're prideful if you think that people want to listen to you, was a huge one for me.
All that Bible training.
Yes. All the guilt and that. Yes, totally. Yeah, you're supposed to be meek and mild, and you're not supposed to be bold and in who you are. And so I think so much of it was the messages and the beliefs that I had about myself. And I really believed that there were so many damaged parts of me that in order to get to my purpose, in order to live that purpose, I had to heal or cure or change all of those things first. That in order to live in my purpose, I had to show up perfectly in my purpose, rather than allowing myself to learn as I went and be vulnerable and say, hey, I kind of suck at this.
Right.
I don't have any clue what I'm doing, but here I am. I'm showing up. That's where I got to be. But I think fear that other people were going to not like me. I mean, there's so many things, but one thing that I've really learned, and I can say that I've learned this so much too within my own life, just within the last couple of years, is it's an undoing. Yeah. So what we're doing is we live in a society where we strive and we need to have this or we need to do this, and before we can be who we are, before we can arrive, before we can share our story, and none of that is true. None of it's true. It's really the goal, I think, is undoing all of the crap, all of the messages, all of the things that are clouding exactly what you said, who we were born to be. We're born and we do have a purpose and we are a pure being, and then all this stuff happens and we have to learn how to get rid of that stuff and go back to being who we truly are, because I totally agree. If we just stop and listen, if we do the work, we can find it.
So, I mean, again, there's a book that I'm a huge reader, and there's a book called A Course in Miracles, and basically, and it's a thick book. It's thick, but it's all about the teachings of Christ, and it basically, to summarize it, and it's a thick book. I mean, it's thick.
Yeah.
But to give a summary, it's basically, as human beings, everything that we experience or feel it can be categorized under one of two things, and that is love or fear. Mm-hmm. And I, at first I thought, that's a lot of blah, 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 but it's not. It truly is. If you really break down everything, so, and I'm kind of leading the witness, so to speak, but because my next question is, What is it that you think holds most people back? And everybody, not everybody, but some, most people say fear,
Hmm.
right? What do you think it is?
Well, that was a good lead in because I agree. I agree. I think everything stems in fear.
Yeah,
And so I think everything that holds people back, the root is in fear.
yeah,
It's either fear of uncovering it, not knowing what to do with it, or fear of what other people are going to think, or fear of not being enough, or I mean, it's all, every response, and this is something I teach in my Women Rising course. You can give me 50 responses, and every single response, we can find how that's grounded in fear.
yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. I love
Yeah.
that. That's, I mean, it's the truth. It's what, and again, I can't remember who it was, but yesterday I would have to look back through my notes, but I was having a conversation with somebody, and I said, look, you're waiting on everything to line up and be perfect. And as long as you wait before you decide to take that first step until it's all perfect and lined up and just, polished perfectly, you're never going to take that step, and you're going to die with your music still in you. Because
Yeah.
one thing is for sure in life, and that is you are going to die. It's going to
Yeah.
happen. You're going to die. We all are. Like, you don't get
Yeah.
out of here alive. So what the heck are you doing living in all this unbelievable, it's all got to be perfect, or this person's going to think that, or that person's going to think that, and then, what if this, and it's like, dude, what are you doing? Like,
Hmm.
no, you can't
Yeah.
do that.
Yeah.
So if somebody, and I ask this question of every guest, and I'm going to ask you, if somebody were to call you and say, Sarah, my life is falling apart. My car was repossessed last week. I had a car repoed in front of all my employees one time. That was fun.
Oh,
Yeah, that was really cool. I'm like,
there's
y'all
a
got
lot.
paid. Don't worry about it, okay? But if somebody called you, said, hey, my car got repoed last week. They're shutting my electric off tomorrow. My life is falling apart. I can't figure it out. I don't know what's going wrong. What do I do? What are you going to say to them? Because and I know it starts right here, but what do you say to that person?
Hmm. Yeah, I do think it starts within your thoughts, but I'm a big believer in planning moving forward. So I would say let's sit down and talk about what got you to where you are, like what got you here, what decisions did you make maybe that weren't helpful, what mistakes did you make, because mistakes are a good thing. They give us a lot of information,
Right?
but we have to have that information.
Yeah.
I think. I think too often people just want to look forward and they don't want to look back and gather the information that we need for the present moment. So it doesn't mean you ever live there, ever.
Right.
You don't ever live there because that's victimhood.
Yeah.
But you go there and you visit and you take the information that you need and then you bring it into the present moment. And so, to help you move forward. So I would say let's do an evaluation of what got you to where you are, and then let's make a plan
Yeah.
for how you're going to do things differently moving forward. And sometimes that plan moving forward is something like therapy. I've got these deep things that I need somebody to walk me through.
Right.
Sometimes it's business. Sometimes there's all these different spokes to
Yep.
the plan that they all have to be incorporated or it's not going to go well. So,
You're right. I agree with you. 1,000%. You, my friend, are an amazing, amazing lady. And
thanks.
Anthony Santangelo talks about you all the time. Love that dude. I love that dude. In fact,
Yeah.
he asked me for a signed copy of my book, and I only had one left, and I sent it out to him this week. So
Oh, that's awesome.
I have more coming in. So I'll get you guys. But so how does everybody here follow you? Where's the best place to follow you?
Yeah. Well, thank you, Ken. That touches my heart. Thank you for that. So yeah, I'm on Facebook. I'm very active on Facebook on my personal page. I'm on Instagram. I'm not as active there. I'm trying to be. I also have recently launched a community called the We Community. I have a podcast called the We Podcast.
Wow.
Maybe you can be my guest on the podcast.
I'd love that.
We'll switch this around.
I would love that. I've been on a few here recently. I'd love that.
Cool. Yeah, our messages are very similar. So
Yeah.
my podcast is all about real speaking your truth.
Yeah.
So that other people know they're not alone and they can hear how you came out the other side and how you're working to improve your life. So there's the podcast. The We Community is really where I'm building. We are doing a call right now for bloggers. We're launching the We Spot blog, and those are the main things. I am working on my book and hoping first of 2019 that I'll have that out. So
That's awesome. So what is the We Community? Is that a Facebook thing? A
Yeah.
Facebook group?
it's a Facebook page.
Page. Okay. Cool.
Yep. Yeah.
Very cool. Well, everybody go follow the We Community, right?
Yeah.
And follow
Yes.
Sarah Monares. I will be tagging you in this here in a little bit.
Awesome.
So people can click on your name and send you a friend request or follow
Yeah,
you or
I love it.
whatever.
Yeah.
So listen, thank you so much. I really genuinely appreciate you coming on the show. I really do. You've got a great story and a great message, and I know, and I'll speak this into your life right now, you are going to help millions of people.
Thank you, Ken. You're going to make me cry.
That's not why I say it. I want you to,
Yeah.
I know that that's your heart. You want to help people, and I love that. And I'm just going to speak that into existence for you.
Thank you.
So,
That really means a lot to me. Thank
Yeah.
you so much for having me, and thank you for all you're doing for people. It's really,
it's what I live for too. So thank you.
yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Dina Kelly said, great interview. I loved this live. Elizabeth Olivieri said, what a great interview. So people love you. You're amazing. So thank you.
Thank you
All right.
so much.
All right. Hey, we'll see you guys tomorrow. Thank you so much. Don't hang up on me now. Just stay with me there on
Okay.
Skype. So, okay. We'll
All
see
right.
you guys tomorrow. Thank you so much.